What's that? What the hell is that?
Oh my God.
Deep in Alaska's shadow-cursed Kenai Peninsula, where forgotten forests whisper warnings, Bryce's team discovered nature's impossible truth. 3 massive trees stood inverted, their twisted roots clawed at the void like ancient fingers seeking prey, weaving an unholy triangle that beckoned toward the shadow of Gray Mountain. A presence, massive and primal, left its fevered imprint in the killing cold, while something that defied nature itself unleashed a sound born of nightmares, half predator, half phantom, that haunted the abandoned logging site. The thermal evidence they gathered that night wouldn't just challenge scientific dogma. It would vindicate generations of Native American elders who had warned of what stalked these forbidden lands. The hunt for America's most elusive legend was about to change forever. The frightening trail. Welcome back to the Cryptid Report. The discovery sent shockwaves through the cryptozoological community. Matt Moneymaker's groundbreaking 1994 encounter had launched the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, amassing nearly 80,000 documented sightings. But this was different. The thermal signature dwarfed anything in BFRO's extensive database, and the geographical positioning of the inverted trees matched ancient Alutiiq warnings about the Nantinaq, a creature so terrifying it had driven an entire village from Portlock in the 1940s. The team's advanced gas detection drones picked up an unmistakable pattern of movement, something massive methodically circling their position. Like ripples in still water, the signs began spreading outward. Local wildlife fled in coordinated patterns, their instinctual fear palpable in the crisp mountain air. The team's equipment, specially modified to detect the creature's distinctive musk, a blend of wet dog, decay, and something indefinably primordial, began registering hits with increasing frequency. The readings matched those reported during the May 2022 Valdez sighting, where a witness had captured footage of an enormous figure crossing the road in broad daylight, its fluid movement defying anything known to inhabit these woods. At the base of Gray Mountain, where the ancient hunting trails of the Alutiiq people converged, they found the first nest. Massive branches, some weighing hundreds of pounds, had been meticulously woven into a structure 12 feet in diameter. The thermal imaging revealed residual heat patterns suggesting recent occupation, while hair samples collected from the site exhibited characteristics that puzzled even veteran BFRO researchers. The DNA analysis would later reveal something extraordinary, a genetic structure that seemed to dance between known classification systems, as if nature herself was obscuring the truth. As night descended over the peninsula, the team's scientific skepticism began crumbling in the face of mounting evidence. Their database of over 80,000 sightings had documented patterns, but nothing like this. The creature's intelligence was undeniable. It wasn't just moving through the landscape, it was manipulating it. The inverted trees weren't random acts of strength. They were markers, signs in an ancient language of territory and presence that echoed the warnings in Alutiiq legend. The team's modern technology was confirming what indigenous wisdom had known for generations. The deeper they pushed into the shadows between the trees, the more the boundary between science and legend began to blur. The thermal drones captured intermittent images of something massive moving with impossible stealth for its size. The pattern matched the descriptions in centuries of Native American accounts, a creature that walked between worlds, as comfortable in darkness as in light. Local elders had warned them about the Nantinaq's ability to confound modern equipment, to appear and disappear at will. Now, as their own high-tech gear began behaving erratically, those warnings carried new weight. Russell's hands trembled as he adjusted the thermal imaging display. The temperature readings defied explanation. A heat signature larger than any known North American predator, moving with deliberate purpose through the underbrush. The pattern matched what Matt Moneymaker had documented in '94, but the scale was unprecedented. Around them, the forest had fallen into an unnatural silence, as if every living thing was holding its breath. The inverted trees cast twisted shadows in the fading light, their exposed roots reaching towards some ancient truth that modern science was only beginning to grasp. Mara's discovery of the second nest site confirmed their suspicions about the creature's intelligence. This structure showed evidence of long-term occupation, with distinct layers suggesting seasonal returns. The meticulous weaving of branches, some pulled from trees over 30 feet high, demonstrated problem-solving abilities that paralleled great ape behavior. But the scale was all wrong. Everything about the site suggested a creature far larger than any known primate. The team documented every detail, knowing their findings would challenge conventional zoological classifications. When the first scream echoed across the valley, it shattered more than the silence. The sound defied categorization, deeper than a bear's roar, more modulated than a wolf's howl, carrying harmonics that their audio equipment struggled to capture. It matched descriptions from the Portlock incident, where an entire village had abandoned their homes after similar vocalizations heralded a series of increasingly bold encounters. The team's scientific detachment began to waver as ancient instincts warned of something watching, something that straddled the line between known and unknown. The Northern Challenge. Dawn brought no comfort to the research team. The morning fog clung to the valley like a burial shroud, obscuring the twisted shapes of the inverted trees. Their drone's thermal imaging had captured something extraordinary during the night. A massive heat signature moving with purpose through the underbrush, following patterns documented in the BFRO database. The data matched accounts from the infamous Portlock abandonment, where an entire Alaskan village fled their homes in the 1940s. Local Alutiiq elders had warned them about the Nantinaq's tendency to become more active at first light, testing boundaries, studying those who dared enter its territory. The team's arrival at Prince of Wales Island marked a turning point in their investigation. The 60,000-acre wilderness stretched before them, its ancient forest harboring secrets that bridged the gap between science and legend. Local witnesses described a pattern of sightings that aligned perfectly with traditional Kwakwaka'wakw accounts of the Zunukwa, a giant, hairy figure known for its distinctive vocalizations. The resemblance to Matt Moneymaker's 1994 Ohio encounter was uncanny. The same height estimation, the same fluid movement through seemingly impenetrable brush, the same inexplicable ability to evade modern tracking technology. Russell's expertise in tracking led them to a series of impressions that defied conventional explanation. The footprints, measuring 22 inches in length, displayed dermal ridges and pressure points that indicated a living creature's passage. Their depth and stride length suggested a bipedal entity weighing several hundred pounds, moving with a biomechanical efficiency that challenged known primatology. The team meticulously documented each print, noting how they matched the characteristics of tracks found after the May 2022 Valdez sighting, where a creature had been observed crossing a remote highway in broad daylight. The discovery of a third nest structure elevated their investigation beyond mere cryptozoology. This habitat showed signs of tool use, branches stripped with precision, complex weaving patterns in the construction, and evidence of food processing. The site contained bone fragments from local wildlife, broken in a manner that suggested deliberate marrow extraction. Dr. Jane Richardson, their primatologist, noted disturbing parallels to great ape behavior, but at a scale that exceeded any known species. The team's documentation would later contribute to the BFRO's growing database of physical evidence. The forest's response to their presence became increasingly unsettling. Wildlife behavior shifted dramatically. Bears abandoned prime feeding grounds. Elk herds moved in coordinated escape patterns, and even the ravens, typically bold scavengers, refused to approach areas where the team found evidence. The phenomenon matched accounts from the Portlock incident, where hunters reported unprecedented animal migrations preceding the village's abandonment. The team's biologists noted that such widespread behavioral changes typically indicated the presence of an apex predator, but nothing in North America's known fauna could provoke this level of systematic avoidance. As they established their research perimeter, the team's scientific methodology confronted indigenous wisdom. Local Alutiiq guides pointed out subtle signs their equipment missed: broken branches that formed deliberate patterns, arrangements of stones that couldn't be natural, areas where the moss growth suggested regular disturbance by something massive. These observations aligned with centuries of traditional knowledge, documented in the oral histories of multiple Native American nations. The correlation between these ancient accounts and their modern findings became impossible to dismiss as mere coincidence. The technical equipment began documenting anomalies that echoed historical reports. Their modified gas detection drones picked up chemical signatures similar to those recorded during Moneymaker's encounter, a distinct combination of organic compounds that suggested a large, unknown primate. The thermal imaging cameras captured heat blooms that indicated something massive moving through the underbrush, its size and movement patterns matching nothing in their extensive wildlife database. The scientific team found themselves navigating between empirical documentation and the inexplicable. Local testimonies painted a pattern of escalating activity. A logging crew working the eastern ridge had abandoned their equipment after a series of night encounters left them convinced something intelligent was stalking their camp. Their descriptions matched elements from both contemporary BFRO reports and traditional Alutiiq accounts of the Nantinak. The overwhelming sense of being watched, objects moved during the night, and vocalizations that seemed to carry impossible distances through the dense forest. The team's audio equipment began picking up infrasonic frequencies similar to those documented in previous investigations. The convergence of evidence was becoming harder to ignore. Historical documentation from the Portlock abandonment, contemporary BFRO data, indigenous oral histories, and their own findings were weaving together into a compelling narrative. Something ancient and intelligent moved through these forests, something that had successfully evaded definitive documentation despite centuries of human encroachment. As night fell again over their research camp, the team prepared their equipment for another session of observation, knowing that somewhere in the darkness they were being observed in return. Into darkness. The team's methodical documentation of anomalies reached a critical point as their third night of observation began. Their research grid, carefully established using BFRO protocols, revealed a pattern that matched historical accounts from the Portlock incident. The creatures, and now they were certain there was more than one, moved in predictable patterns around their observation posts. The thermal imaging revealed heat signatures that formed geometric patterns around the camp's perimeter, eerily similar to hunting behaviors documented in pack predators. Yet the scale was all wrong. These signatures suggested organisms far larger than any known North American wildlife. The breaking point came during the pre-dawn hours. Mireya's tracking expertise led them to a freshly killed moose, but the evidence defied conventional predation patterns. The carcass showed signs of methodical butchering, with precise breaks in major bones suggesting tool use. More disturbing were the tracks around the site, multiple sets of oversized footprints displaying clear dermal ridges, some measuring 24 inches in length. The The team documented everything meticulously, knowing their findings would face intense scrutiny. The parallels to the 2022 Valdez incident were impossible to ignore, down to the distinctive bone fracture patterns. Russell's equipment began registering unprecedented levels of infrasonic activity, frequencies below human hearing that matched recordings from previous BFRO investigations. The sound patterns displayed elements of structure and repetition, suggesting communication rather than random noise. Their audio analysis revealed harmonics similar to those recorded during Matt Moneymaker's famous Ohio encounter, but with a complexity that hinted at a sophisticated form of long-distance communication. Local Alutiiq elders had long spoken of the Nantinnaq's ability to speak through the mountains, a description that suddenly carried new weight. The forest itself seemed to react to these subsonic emissions. The team's wildlife cameras captured mass migrations of smaller animals fleeing the area, while their thermal drones detected larger predators abandoning their traditional hunting grounds. Dr. Richardson noted that this behavior mirrored accounts from the Portlock abandonment, where hunters reported unprecedented wildlife displacement preceding the village's evacuation. The pattern suggested an intelligence at work, something systematically clearing its territory through what appeared to be deliberate intimidation tactics. Their base camp became a fortress of technology against the encroaching unknown. Multiple flyer cameras scanned the tree line continuously, while modified gas detection drones mapped chemical signatures throughout their research grid. The data they collected painted an increasingly unsettling picture, evidence of a highly intelligent social species that had evolved to evade human detection. The creature's ability to manipulate its environment, from the inverted trees to the sophisticated nest structures, suggested problem-solving capabilities that challenged existing primatological frameworks. The team's scientific detachment began to crumble when they discovered the glyph-like arrangements. Stones and broken branches had been positioned in patterns that couldn't be attributed to natural forces, forming configurations that eerily resembled the symbolic systems documented in the Alutiiq oral histories. These markers appeared overnight, always just outside their camera coverage, suggesting an intelligence that understood and actively avoided their surveillance technology. The implications were staggering. They weren't just tracking an unknown species. They were interacting with something that was studying them in return. A pivotal moment came when they analyzed hair samples found near the third nest site. The DNA sequencing revealed anomalies that defied conventional classification, markers suggesting a previously unknown primate species, but with genetic adaptation suited to extreme northern environments. The samples shared characteristics with hair collected during the recent Valdez sighting, but exhibited variations that pointed to a diverse population rather than a single specimen. This physical evidence corroborated centuries of Native American accounts describing family groups of these creatures inhabiting the region. The psychological impact of their investigation began manifesting in subtle ways. Team members reported vivid dreams filled with shadows moving just at the edge of vision. Their sleep patterns became disrupted by what they initially dismissed as wildlife sounds, until audio analysis revealed these nighttime disturbances contained language-like structures matching documented Bigfoot vocalizations. The boundary between observer and observed grew increasingly blurred as they realized their research methods might be revealing as much about themselves as their elusive quarry. As the first week of their expedition drew to a close, the evidence had become impossible to ignore. Their database now contained thermal images of something that moved with impossible stealth for its size, audio recordings that suggested complex communication, and physical evidence that pointed to an unknown species of intelligent primate. Yet with each new discovery, fresh questions emerged. The creature's ability to remain hidden despite centuries of human encroachment suggested not just physical adaptation, but a kind of intelligence that had evolved specifically to avoid detection by humans while maintaining dominance over its territory. Critical discovery. The 8th day brought a dramatic shift. At 3:47 a.m., the thermal imaging array detected multiple large heat signatures moving in coordinated patterns through their research grid. The readings matched Moneymaker's 1994 encounter profile, but with a crucial difference. These signatures suggested organized movement, with smaller figures flanking a massive central heat source. The behavior mirrored Alutiiq oral histories, where the Nantinak was said to move with shadow walkers, younger members of its kind. Dawn revealed their research markers systematically relocated, forming patterns documented in the BFRO database. Massive trees had been broken at uniform heights, their tops woven into complex arrangements pointing toward specific landmarks. Dr. Richardson noted this environmental manipulation suggested not just intelligence, but a sophisticated system of territorial marking exceeding known primate behavior. The pre-dawn audio captured a breakthrough. The calls contained structured patterns sharing characteristics with primate communication systems, matching recordings from the Portlock incident. The vocalizations displayed clear call and response patterns, with specific phrases repeated at regular intervals, suggesting a complex communication system unknown to science. At Gray Mountain's base, they discovered caves showing evidence of long-term habitation. Walls bore marks of tool use, while scattered bones showed systematic marrow extraction. Carbon dating suggested centuries of continuous occupation, aligning with Alutiiq accounts of the Nantinaq's winter shelters. Their drone captured footage of something massive moving through the canopy with fluid efficiency. Its estimated height matched the 2022 Valdez sighting descriptions. The footage showed clear tool use, with the figure manipulating branches while maintaining cover from aerial observation. Fresh tracks led to a recently abandoned nest site, telling a story of multiple individuals, including juveniles. The nest's construction showcased sophisticated weaving techniques with distinct activity sections. Hair samples contained DNA markers that would challenge existing theories about North American primate evolution. The defining moment came during their final night. Thermal cameras captured large figures establishing coordinated positions around the camp, displaying tactical awareness by testing surveillance coverage. The behavior matched BFRO researchers' accounts, but this coordination exceeded previous documentation. Every instrument confirmed the same conclusion. They were witnessing the activity of multiple unknown creatures operating with sophisticated social organization. The evidence painted a picture that challenged zoological foundations, a species combining extreme environment adaptations with advanced problem-solving capabilities, maintaining generational territories while successfully evading human detection. The final night. Their last expedition into Gray Mountain's shadow brought undeniable confrontation. At midnight, the thermal imaging grid went dark, not from malfunction, but systematic disruption. Each camera failed in sequence, suggesting deliberate intervention. The team's worst fears were confirmed when Russell detected massive heat signatures approaching from 3 directions, using patterns documented in previous BFRO encounters. Mireya's expertise identified fresh markings on the trees, complex symbols matching those from the Portlock incident. The patterns held meaning beyond mere territorial marking. They were messages. Local Alutiiq guides translated one repeated symbol, boundary. The creatures weren't just warning them, they were communicating boundaries with increasing sophistication. The encounter escalated when their perimeter sensors triggered simultaneously. Through night vision equipment, they observed something unprecedented. 3 large figures moving with coordinated precision. The largest stood nearly 9 feet tall, its movements displaying the same fluid biomechanics captured in the 2022 Valdez footage. Two smaller figures flanked it, their behavior suggesting a family unit. The team's audio equipment captured a complex series of vocalizations, low-frequency calls interwoven with infrasonic pulses. The pattern matched recordings from Matt Moneymaker's database, but demonstrated higher complexity. Analysis would later reveal embedded harmonics suggesting a layered communication system, supporting theories about advanced social structures. The creature's intelligence became undeniable when they systematically herded the team toward the ancient cave system. Each movement seemed calculated, using shadows and terrain to maintain partial concealment while demonstrating clear intent. The behavior aligned perfectly with indigenous accounts of the Nantinaq's strategic thinking, yet displayed modern adaptation to surveillance technology. Dr. Richardson's observational protocols captured crucial details in those final hours. The creatures showed tool use, environmental manipulation, and most importantly, coordinated group tactics. Their ability to evade multiple camera angles while maintaining effective pressure on the team suggested not just instinctive behavior, but calculated strategy. The culmination came at dawn. The team found themselves surrounded by evidence of an entire night's activity. Broken branches forming complex patterns, fresh tracks showing coordinated movement, and a series of markers that carbon dating would later prove were placed within hours of their discovery. The message was clear. They weren't the observers, they were the observed. As morning light filtered through the canopy, the team gathered their final readings. The data told a story that would challenge scientific consensus. Thermal signatures of unknown primates, DNA evidence suggesting an undiscovered species, and audio recordings of structured communication. They had documented not just an unknown creature, but an intelligent species that had successfully remained hidden despite centuries of human encroachment. Legacy of the Shadow Walkers. The team's findings reached far beyond cryptozoology circles. Their documentation of coordinated group behavior and sophisticated communication patterns forced a re-evaluation of North American wildlife studies. The DNA analysis revealed markers previously unknown to science, suggesting an undiscovered primate species that had evolved alongside human civilization while maintaining deliberate isolation. The Alutiiq elders' generations of knowledge found validation in modern scientific data. The creature's complex social structures, territorial marking systems, and strategic thinking aligned perfectly with indigenous accounts. The Nantinaq wasn't just a legend. It represented an intelligent species that had developed sophisticated strategies for avoiding human detection while maintaining its ancestral territories. The impact on scientific understanding was profound. The recorded vocalizations contained linguistic patterns that suggested cultural transmission of knowledge, teaching younger generations to navigate an increasingly human-dominated landscape. This evidence of generational learning and adaptation challenged conventional theories about wildlife intelligence and social complexity. The expedition's most significant contribution wasn't just the physical evidence, but the bridge it built between traditional knowledge and modern research. The correlation between centuries-old indigenous accounts and contemporary scientific findings opened new avenues for investigation. The creature's demonstrated ability to adapt to modern surveillance technology while maintaining ancient behavioral patterns suggested an intelligence that demanded further study. The Grey Mountain expedition marked a turning point in cryptozoological research. By combining advanced technology with indigenous wisdom, the team documented evidence of an unknown species that had mastered the art of existing alongside human civilization without detection. Their findings suggested that perhaps the greatest mystery wasn't the existence of these creatures, but how much more remained to be discovered in the shadows of our own world. From ancient tribal wisdom to modern scientific investigation, the search for Bigfoot continues to challenge our understanding of what lives in North America's last wild places. What secrets still hide in your local forests? Share your thoughts and experiences below, and don't forget to subscribe for more journeys into the unexplained.